pass it off to Robbie Jones, who's not just an exhibit director or exhibition director, sorry, for the entire event that you're going to be hearing about. New HR tech, yay. And all around swell guy. And if you're in London, be sure to look him up and have lunch or maybe a pint or something, eh? So with that, Robbie, please do introduce yourself a bit, and we'll give you the mic here as well to share what is new and exciting from CloserStill.
Amazing, thanks, Ward. Firstly, just to extend a thank you to the sponsors, Harbinger. I've actually been talking to Janavi and Seema and Kumadini about the show over the last few days, so that's a big coincidence. A great brand. Just in terms of, I guess, giving you an overview of how this session will run, it's basically two topics on the agenda. The first is to give you an overview of CloserStill HR Technologies UK, what we're doing, and how that might be connected if you have interest in the UK market. And the second really is I guess, more about the philosophy of event organizing, where people around the world have gone maybe wrong over the last few years and maybe created some distance with marketers, and what we do to, I guess, amend that and evolve people's marketing plans and really be that support force globally as CloserStill Media. Just firstly, just to give you a bit of background about myself. So I've been working in the exhibitions industry for over 10 years, launched and sold and supported marketing on events in about 30 different industries all around the world. It's my passion, organizing events, but that doesn't always mean that it's an advocated passion. A couple of years ago, I felt the need during the pandemic to write an article on LinkedIn, which was a bit controversial, but essentially a big criticism of how event organizers were addressing the pandemic and the changes that needed to be made in our industry. So I think it might be good a bit later on in this session just to give you all a kind of an overview of how your money is spent by event organizers as well, and just be transparent about that in terms of how we support people with return on investment, with content, and with brand storytelling as well. But if I can just start off, Ward, am I able to share screen on here?
You sure can. I'll stop it on my end here and you can drive right in.
Fantastic. And obviously, no getting away from it, the main purpose of this session is hopefully to really kind of inspire you all to be part of this event, HR Technologies UK. And hopefully it will explain why Ward and HR Tech Advisor have decided to exclusively work with us in the United Kingdom, with that belief in what HR tech vendors need to collaborate and sell, of course, to brands throughout the UK market. Of course, as English language market, it's the most relevant to all SMEs, but also big brand vendors throughout the US as well. And I'll go into a bit of detail later on, just to give you guys an overview of who from the US is already exhibiting with us. So as you can see, I've got on the screen here, just a bit of background to who CloserStill Media is. But I suppose rather than reading it, if I just scroll down here, CloserStill Media is Europe's largest exhibitions organizer for HR. We run the Recruitment Personal, which is not just the biggest exhibition in Europe, but globally. However, the Recruitment Personal, attracting 20,000 visitors, 800 exhibitors, is a generic kind of general HR exhibition. In the United Kingdom, we've been running a show called Learning Technologies UK for about 20 years. It delivers over 9,000 learning and development and HR professionals every year. And we made a decision about a year and a half ago to launch HR Technologies UK in the same floor space. So I'll just give you an overview of what that looks like here. Wait one moment. There you go. So this is the overall floor plan for the show. The HR Technologies UK launches on the left, Learning Technologies mature event 20 years is on the right in purple. HR Technologies UK, we expect over the next 3 or 4 years to expand to being about 3 times the size of Learning Technologies. Reason for that is learning obviously is one pillar of HR, and what we're delivering is a show for employee engagement, talent and recruitment, operations and services, and of course the topic of health and well-being. The reason for this launch and this is probably why Ward asked me to speak today, is and it's a very important thing to go into for all of you. So HR events over the last 15 to 20 years in the United Kingdom have basically been run by associations, magazines, people who are excellent at what they do in their day-to-day jobs, but are not professional exhibition organisers. And so what we had was a real problem in the UK, where the likes of Workday and UKG would be exhibiting and they'd find themselves next to an exhibition stand with cupcakes or paint bull away days, or
Right.
people selling all kinds of strange employee engagement soft skills, which have a place in the workforce, but we know that the spend is in tech. And all of the evidence has suggested that it's the most heavily invested area of enterprise C-suite in the United Kingdom at the moment in terms of growth. So we decided to exclusively run an event for technology. No one can exhibit at our event unless they have innovative tech. And we're very ruthless about how we analyze that, asking the advice of not just Ward, but lots of partners that we work with, from Ben Eubanks to Bill Borman to Hung Lee, world famous podcasters and thought leaders in this area who speak with the CEOs of the biggest brands in the world, as well as, of course, invest and support startups that are talked about all over the industry media. We also, at CloserStill Media, have a very clear philosophy of how to run events. And when I joined the business in March, I tried my best to put a real stamp on this. As I mentioned, for years, these general HR events have worked like this. If I was talking to David or Paramdeep or Prabhu on this call, it would be, buy a stand from us. Let's see you at the show next year. Good luck. Let's hope the right people come past your stand on the day. We'll send some emails out and do our best that way. It's my belief that that is no longer acceptable as a way to support marketing departments or to run events. Therefore, we have placed huge investment into two areas of our event to make sure C-suites are directly connected to you, but also that they're inspired to come to the event due to the rich content that we have. So firstly, just to address direct relationships that you build through our event, rather than relying on serendipity and chance, we've invested a huge sum of money in an app called Swapcard, which is the show app. It is what everyone must use in order to access information about the event and to set up meetings beforehand. So whether you're coming from the US or Australia or just down the road in London, you'll find yourself on this show app in the weeks preceding the event. Myself and my team of 10 people coach you guys how to use and optimize this app, so we hold your hand through the whole process. The purpose of this is twofold. Firstly, it's so that you guys can make this event all about your own ICP, your own target audience. So if you're, for example, targeting recruitment directors from retail outlets, you can go through the registered visitors on the app and you can reach out to between 10 and 15 of those people per salesperson on your team and try and set up meetings with them. We deliberately limit this because we're an event organizer that does not encourage spamming, and we know that's the first way to deter people from coming to your show. We have a team of 25 people in our company whose job it is purely to manage relationships with the delegates, the visitors, those HR, recruitment, people, well-being officers. It's really important, of course, that to maintain those relationships, these people are not spammed, but also that we understand their needs. And this brings me on to my next point, which is probably more important. And it's a real, template for how to run good events. The thing that matters most at an exhibition, even though it's you guys, the vendors that pay for the exhibition to happen, is of course fulfilling the needs of those visitors, making the experience for them inspiring so that they come and buy from you. And so how we do this is we make sure that when you register to visit a show, as you guys all know from your visits to various events, I'm sure, you have to say, what are my pain points? What are my interests? What's important to my role? And we record that information, and the show app through AI automatically recommends that they set up meetings with you individually. So if you have a solution, whether it's payroll, whether it's talent acquisition, whether it's something to do with well-being, whereby you can solve their problem, the AI will have already suggested that they reach out to you personally to help solve that problem. This investment is something that we're incredibly proud of. At our last CloserStill Media event, Technology for Marketing, we recorded over 12,000 meetings that took place just through this app, rather
That's
than
amazing.
Yeah, thanks for. We were pretty proud of that. But rather than just you relying on people passing by your stand and exhibition organisers, I guess, lazily collecting the money, hiring the space in one of these warehouses and kind of hoping for the right results for you. So this has been the main reason why the likes of SAP, UKG, Indeed have decided to pull their investment from all other exhibitions in the United Kingdom purely into my show, and we're really proud to be working with them. Workday, that brings me on nicely to the Keynote Theatre, have decided to be a headline sponsor of the show. So I'm just going to take you around the floor plan here. This Keynote Theatre is sponsored by Workday, and this Keynote Theatre has received huge investment. We're very lucky at CloserStill Media. We're backed by a private equity firm called Providence, who have placed huge investment in this. And what we mean by that is TEDx speakers, the likes of Simon Sinek, Gary Vaynerchuk, Jordan Peterson. Those are the kinds of names that we will be bringing to the show. We will be confirming the exact speakers in the new year. The show's in May, but just to kind of whet your appetite, those are the types of people we reach out to and have the money to pay and bring into the event. The main reason for that, and you might be thinking, what do those guys know about HR or talent or recruitment, is because we actually did our due diligence. We have a database of over 100,000 professionals in the UK. And when we surveyed them, it was clear that they didn't want to listen to the same HR director from BP year after year after year. However well-intended that is, they wanted to be inspired and understand how to run their department as effectively as the IT enterprise C-suite or the marketing enterprise C-suite. HR needs to be brought forward. So that's what we did there. And as part of your exhibitor packages at our event, and this is, I guess, where we start talking about value for you, you actually have up to 40 passes if you're a platinum sponsor of our event, which you can provide free of charge to your top prospects in the United Kingdom or your top customers. Why is this impressive? Because they're £799 if you want to access the Keynote Theatre. The rest of the show floor is, of course, free to attend, including all 4 theatres that you can see there through the middle of the floor plan. What are these theatres for? These are for you. So the idea behind these theatres is it's for our exhibitors because of their innovative tech, because we're exclusively about innovation and technology, for you to go and talk to people for half an hour, all your time, have a member of your staff go and scan the badges of every single person in that theatre who's listening to and engaging with your product from the US. Incredibly powerful piece of data capture for you, which I would actually class as SQL rather than MQL probably. Also, that kind of leads me on to my next point, which is how we've designed the floor plan for this event. Too often at trade shows, you guys will know you're dragging yourself around a show floor. It's very confusing. There's walls everywhere. We made sure that we have as much line of sight, which is a term in our industry, which means you can just see all the way through. So there are island stands here that the likes of Atlas, Awardco, Globalization Partners, Ceridian, where we've got those premier partners for the event, those global leaders. We wanted to make sure that you can see all the way through and across to smaller businesses as well, so that they can be accessed and feel like they're on the same level of visibility, and also that there's a route straight to the Keynote Theatre. On the right, just to explain how these theatres work, your exhibitor speaker session is half an hour long, and it's not just about data capture and inspiration. We would recommend strongly that you have a case study with you. Now, that might be hard if you've conquered the US market and you're looking to branch into the UK, but if you know someone based in London who loves working with you, then make sure that you bring them to the event and they're talking on your behalf as well. There's nothing better than being championed by one of your customers. The juice bar that you can see in the middle here is a very funny name for something on the floor plan, but it is essentially something Peloton have built themselves. They were desperate, of course, to break into the corporate market and make sure people are engaging with their tech, their app, and competing amongst employee engagement and health and well-being. This juice bar and all the juice that people will come and drink here is actually powered by their bikes, which are like on the circumference of this stand. So all the way around this area, you'll have Peloton bikes powering the juice that's being served to your customers. Very cool idea.
That is wild.
It's quite exciting, isn't it? And then between the Keynote Theatre and the delegate catering point is where the juice bar is. Now, just to be clear about what these things mean, the conference delegate catering point is where everyone who is paid to come to the keynote theatre has their breakfast, their lunches, their hydration, everything that they need. They have access across the entire show. So whilst we are a different event from Learning Technologies UK, they work right next to us in the office, and everything here is transparent and connected. We do not want to separate ourselves. The idea here, of course, is now we are taking over the representation of the entire HR market in the United Kingdom. So you can go straight from one area to the other. And the only cafe in the whole show floor is deliberately on the border between the two shows. And it's sponsored by Totara, mainly because of their wanting and needs to target and tell their story to HR C-suite as well as learning and development. Again, floor plan design. There is no quiet area in this show. Theatres 3 and 4. Typically, we get between 50 and 100 people to each seminar session. They run throughout both days of the show. Traffic constantly flows. And you can see that we don't just work with some of the biggest brands in the world. We also have space, even at the front of the show, for smaller businesses, startups, companies with between 50 and 500 employees who want to make sure they're really putting their stamp on the market. This is essentially the only 2 days in the calendar year, the 3rd to the 4th of May, which is when the show takes place in London, where you have the opportunity to meet with the entire industry in those 2 days in basically one massive room. And of course, what we try and do is remove that word massive by personalizing your experience through the app, through one-to-one meetings, and give you all the tools to help you. Another thing that people internationally are often, I guess, neglected by event organizers on over the years is you sign up to a show in another market and you think, how on earth are we going to do this? We've got to fly over there. The logistics are a nightmare. Does anyone know who we are? Well, we work with a dedicated PR company called Storm Communications, who I will introduce to all international exhibitors at the event to start giving you a footing, start giving you promotion, so that we can drip feed that through our industry media. That's kind of a summary, I suppose, of how the event works. How we operate in terms of, I suppose, packages on the show floor is, I suppose, what you want to find out. You know, how much does this cost and what's the value to you? This is an overview of who comes to the show. Again, we've kind of covered this, but HR, recruitment, talent, people officers, benefits, and crucially, guys, CloserStill Media runs lots of tech events in the IT, marketing, sales function as well. So we already have relationships with thousands of CTOs, heads of technologies, IT director, chief procurement officer, etc. In terms of those packages, we have, for our biggest sponsors at the event, people that take 50 square meters or more on the floor plan, a platinum package, which is valued at £9,995 and includes everything here that I'll make sure is sent to all of you after this call. I've already discussed most of these elements with you, but of course, as well as those personalized one-to-one meetings, we want to make sure your brand is everywhere. So inserts into exhibition bags, not just entry onto the app, but also conference guest passes for the keynote theatre for your staff as well. Gold package, one down from that, 24 square meters up to 50, 6,995 for the package, with those features, just slightly fewer features there. It's really important here to kind of manage expectations. You'll see it says £649 per square meter. That is the rate per square meter in addition to the package price there. And then you have to obviously factor in a £250 booking fee, which includes your data scanner. So rather than just relying on the app, everyone, what you're also able to do is obviously have a data scanning device at the show so you can capture your own data, and that spreadsheet is immediately emailed to you on the close of the show. So we really kind of support and help you with SQLs. It's not just up to you to collect business cards. This goes right down to support SMEs and startups. So the silver package, again, less expensive, fewer benefits there, but you still have an exhibition seminar in your package as you do with the other ones. And then the basic package, which is just your app, your scanner, and whatever you need to do to get into the show. We also have an incredible startup village, which is designed, including a competition by Bill Borman, to promote up to 40 startup businesses who can all apply to be part of this. Anyone around the world can apply to be part of this. And obviously this will be a huge feature in the media. So this is powered by Lace Partners, who are a brilliant consultancy in the United Kingdom. and they'll be introduced to you and help support you and advise you on how to make the most of the show. This is an all-inclusive package. So everything else you've looked at, all those stands around the show floor I showed you, that is space only. We can give you free of charge a shell scheme build, walls, carpet, just the basics. But this startup zone obviously includes everything, including a screen as well. So you just turn up from abroad. Everything is already set up for you, including your logo on the wall there in the startup zone. In terms of sponsorship opportunities, this is probably the thing we're most proud of. So historically in the UK, you'll go to events in Manchester or London and you'll see lanyards being sponsored or badges. This is the first event in history in the United Kingdom to have a full sponsorship takeover of a venue. The London Excel, all the way to the Tube Station Custom House, has got screens being sponsored by the likes of Atlas, Ceridian, Indeed, Workday sponsoring their flags that welcome everyone into the Excel. So all of these opportunities are sold, but there is an additional brochure that we then had to create to provide lots of extra branding opportunities as well. So the screens that I mentioned there, and of course I can send you more information on these again after the event if you're interested in brand awareness. But I don't want to make this too salesy. Just to summarize the event, I suppose, and how we operate at CloserStill Media. We're incredibly proud to be an international organization. We've recently formed a partnership with HR.com with Ward's help. We're incredibly proud to be working with Ward. I'm really grateful for the opportunity today to have addressed kind of all of you about the basics of our event. Ward chose to work with us, I suppose, because we believe in vendor-to-vendor collaboration and how important that is. So that the biggest brands in the world have their partners represented at our show, but are also able to educate and advise each other on partnerships, mergers and acquisitions, and everything that's important to the whole industry. So I just want to say a big thank you to Ward. Just finally, I suppose, on the subject of organizing events, I mentioned earlier, of course, that it's our passion, it's what we do. We feel very strongly about the history of events, not just in the UK, but of those that you'll have been to in the US, sometimes excluding large parts of the market, particularly the small and mid-size in the market. I said earlier we're exclusive, and yes, we are in terms of tech, but we are an inclusive organization. We want to promote startups and SMEs as much as we can and do in the same areas of the floor plan as the likes of Workday, UKG, and alongside them in seminar sessions in adjacent theatres. That's really important to us. We don't want to exclude any exhibitors that are innovative in tech, and we don't want to exclude any visitors in terms of them being in mid-management, working their way up in the organisation. It's the first way to turn off people in the next 10, 15 years when they become that CHRO. So about 50% of our audience is mid-management in HR, recruitment, talent, and the other 50% are those C-suites that I mentioned earlier, that our team of 25 prioritise over the course of the year. They develop relationships with the whole FTSE 500, with everyone in government, including the House of Commons. This is really the British event for anyone that cares about being a part of this marketplace. So obviously I'd love to be able to welcome as many of you as possible to sponsor, to exhibit at our show in May. And just a big thank you to Ward for allowing me the opportunity to talk about what we do.
Yeah, great. And we have some more time for questions, but before we even get to that, thank you, Robbie. That was amazing. And just wondering if I think the Coronation's coming up the weekend after your show, right? Or the show.
That's right. The timing actually couldn't be better because it's basically between two separate holidays in the UK. So this is kind of the 2 days that everyone is kind of focused, I suppose, on work in that period. So we're quite lucky that this year the show falls on the 3rd and the 4th of May as opposed to being later or earlier, I suppose.
Right. Well, maybe.
But yeah, time it with a visit to the Coronation. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe the Royals will make a visit to the event or something, on their routes around the city. I don't know. That'd be fun.
I don't want to get into a conversation about whether they need advice on health and well-being and diversity and inclusion, but certainly they might be part of the event. Yeah, you never know.
That's funny, but yeah, I'm sure they need some freshen up their HR tech stack, so they should definitely come by and get some things. Although they'd probably run amok on the security of the security.
Yeah, That might change my whole budget there, I think, but yeah.
So thanks. Yeah, thanks again for the collaboration, the partnership. We're excited to be invited to be part of your debut for the HR Tech part of the event, which you're the exhibition director. And since you gave the time for me to talk a little bit about the collaboration zone for those that are not already familiar with what we've done at HR Tech Alliances and the community and all our supporters, both sponsors and friends and industry colleagues. It's been a tremendous 6 years building out the community for collaboration. And here's some pictures from pre-COVID type events happening around the world. And we're excited to be a part of the event coming up in May as well, because the UK is such a huge market and an important market for not only companies there, but certainly global companies looking to expand their footprint either into the European market or just from a global theater standpoint. It's not something that you can just overlook. It's so important. So we're thrilled to be part of it. Our collaboration zones, although I didn't see it on the floor plan yet because the floor plan continues to expand, right, Robbie? All these great HR Tech companies signing up, expanding the footprint inside the Excel. It will have a home somewhere convenient on the floor, similar to maybe what you see here at a previous event that we did, where the executives can sit around the table, have a conversation around how do you partner with each other? How do you go to market? How do you solve the issues that your common customers are experiencing and have a collaborative discussion about it. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, Ward. I mean, it will look like that, but it'll be a lot more technologically advanced. So in terms of screens around, beautiful design, lots of space for everyone to interact. This is always generously, I guess, provided or designed by the exhibition organizer to make sure that Ward's area is as pristine as possible, but we've kind of taken an extra leap in the budget here to make this area look absolutely incredible at our show. So in a year's time, I know that Ward will be using all of the photos from our show probably for these presentations. And I just wanted to mention that from the design point of view. Sorry, Ward.
Yeah, totally. And maybe if you're doing double deckers like the buses there, maybe you could put one on top of the Peloton juice bar, because that would be fantastic, place to be. I don't know, have a view of the expo floor and all that. And just spitballing ideas with you there, Robbie. But no, it's the good thing is it'll be convenient to everybody participating, not only the HR Tech side of the house, but also the the learning and development solutions, because talent management is such a huge part of the HR Tech stack, which is why we're thrilled to be part of it. And this is basically the same floor plan that Robbie showed, except I just did an overlay conveniently on, I forget who you said was under there, but visually it'll be a place where, again, you can connect to collaborate. We'll have professional development content for you and your peers. So while the buyers, the HR practitioners, executives, and whatnot, while they're in session learning about whatever those sessions are, you'll be in sessions potentially, if you choose, in the collaboration zone, learning how to better win more business with your partners or discover new partners and so forth. So we're thrilled to have the opportunity to do that, and certainly thrilled to collaborate with CloserStill Media, who's running, from a global footprint standpoint, a lot of wonderful events globally. And this is really the launching pad for, I think, what's going to be amazing future within the HR Tech space. And I can't and won't say any more about it, but I'll just leave that thought there as a kind of a icebreaker to any questions, or from the audience, or from from any of the folks on the live stream. Just go ahead and shoot your questions across. Robbie, one thing that comes up a lot and is the smaller companies that maybe don't have the giant budgets yet. Once they hit your show and they get those pocket full of high quality leads, they're probably going to be coming back next year with a vengeance for, you know, a beautiful large booth where they can really entertain, you know, their prospects and customers. What can you share a little bit more? You mentioned like the you know, startup area and, you know, some of the people involved like Borman and the consulting company you mentioned. What's
Yeah,
what's
absolutely.
what's that going to be like?
So if I do it in two ways, I suppose firstly, in terms of your point about cost and it being accessible, that startup zone is an all-inclusive package of £2,995. It includes absolutely everything. So you just turn up at the show with your iPad or your business card, but you've already got a big screen there as well. Lockable cabinet, everything that you need, your brand behind you on the wall. That's really for startup businesses and people that want to champion themselves as you know, top startups in the industry. Obviously, we always have to have the conversation, and there's a vetting process there. But most of the time, you know, people in this industry are very reasonable, and they know whether or not they would apply for that. If you want a booth like on Ward's screen here, one of the small ones, the front of the show, those actually sold out, those ones now, but we are building lots more and expanding the floor plan shortly. They are a little bit less expensive, obviously, than the other spaces. So you can do a basic package, 9 square meters, just over £6,000. Or if you wanted a seminar included and be in one of those theatres, that starts at £12,033. So there's a real variation there, of course, in pricing and kind of opportunity for how much exposure that you want. We're talking there about 3 by 3. I think in the US it's sort of 10 by 10, isn't it? I think in terms of feet. And then 12 square meter stands as well. That's kind of, I suppose, an overview. Everyone has access to the app. It doesn't matter whether you're Workday, SAP, or a startup business. You all have access to the show app, access to see company names and job titles to connect with those registered visitors prior to the show. You also have a scanner, doesn't matter how big or small your business is, to capture that data as well. That's kind of what I meant by us being inclusive. And of course, you know, we're content heavy and content rich, as I mentioned before. So we have a head of content who's amazing called Caroline. And her and I have basically kind of created a kind of, not just a website, but, you know, the social media feeds that we have. Our website gets over 200,000 impressions a month from around the United Kingdom. And just to make this point, this is a national event. All of our shows at CloserStill Media are focused on being regional and being the best in what we do in the industry, rather than anything generic. So it's a specific value proposition that we have, and a specific reason that you go to exhibit at this event. In terms of what else we do, as I mentioned, we work with the PR company that support you by drip feeding your story through the industry media. We're content rich, so if you've got something innovative or exciting or a case study, we always want to share that with our audience because it can really help our visitors. And of course, the whole point of this event is to help bolster the HR, talent, recruitment, and people space across the United Kingdom. So yeah, that's kind of, I suppose, how we support you. Obviously, I can go into more specifics if any of you would like to chat with me individually. Always happy to kind of book time in the calendar and obviously check out our website as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in terms of all the conferences I've gone to over the years, especially where there's a startup zone, if you will, they want to meet, you know, the bigger partners or the bigger players and potentially partner with them. So one of the things that we provide as part of the collaboration zone, typically the larger providers will have a session there where you can sit in and hear, how do you partner with SAP, for example, and everybody can hear it at once. They can hear the questions asked around the table and then decide, is it time to bug them or perhaps prepare for the day when they can approach somebody like an SAP about partnering. There's not a ton of mystery around it, but there's a lot of stuff that startups typically have to learn in that area. And it's appreciated by all because everybody's time is valuable. And certainly if you want to partner with some of these players, and over time you should, you want to make sure that you have some ducks in a row so that, your best shot, perhaps, at least in person, you'll be ready for that. And so that's part of what we provide to the community to help the earlier stage or even later stage companies that just want to hear what's new with some of these larger players, with their partner programs and their ecosystems, and what are they looking for, what aren't they looking for, did the cost of entry change, if there is one or was one. All those kind of questions come up. And even marketing development funds, we had a great roundtable with LinkedIn at one point, and I didn't even know they had money for their partners. But once you get into their partner program, assuming you're helping them deliver on sales, they accumulate funds that can be used for conferences and buying a bigger booth, for example, with Robbie at HR Technologies. And so there's definitely a lot of benefits behind beyond just co-marketing or co-selling with some of these folks. It's having additional support when you need it from your partners, and that's important part. So that's one aspect you can look forward to, again, whether you're already a partner or looking to be one for some of these different companies.
And this is so important to us. One of our aims is to reflect the industry on our floor plan, right? So what Ward's doing, I mean, this is where the decisions are ultimately going to be made or set up in the calendar year on those 2 days in terms of partnerships, M&A, those key agreements that are formed. And in addition to that, just with Ward's reference to how people start small and grow with us, everyone knows Cornerstone, right? And they exhibited their first ever show was this event, Learning Technologies. They now have the biggest stand on the show, and they started in a startup zone. What we wanted to do, though, was just to kind of, I suppose, upgrade, and all the investment is going into the HR Technologies UK side, obviously. And what we wanted to do is kind of upgrade that startup offering. So what I didn't mention earlier is, as well as having that sort of basic all-inclusive setup on the show floor, Bill Borman, who we work with, who some of you may know, but is a world-renowned global thought leader and speaker, and he organizes and curates lots of programs. Bill is actually going to be running a competition for that startup zone, which will be adjudicated by him, by a tech vendor, by an HR practitioner, and also by a VC. And we just secured a venture capitalist sponsor for the event. So I suppose we're covering all bases in that sense.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's a great point, Robbie. And I'm sure you've had this in the past, but certainly I would expect the same here, that there will be investors attending, and some of the investment bankers and so forth that do the M&A. And would you meet them otherwise if you're not part of this event? I don't think so. And for those that aren't from Europe or don't go to shows often in Europe, and there's something you're thinking about, it's, I guess, more common there. But what I found interesting about this show, and Robbie, correct me if I'm off base, but pretty much anybody that has an interest in the content or meeting some of the exhibitors can attend. It's not necessarily just buyers. I mean, it can also be other providers that maybe aren't able to, or exhibit or whatnot. But a great way to get to know the event and the people behind it, and certainly visit with the sponsors. And
that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right, Ward. And sorry, just on that point.
Sure.
The easiest way for us to keep growing the show is at the event. We have a sales lounge where the floor plan gets filled out and packed over the course of the show. Priority is given to our customers, our existing supporters. But yeah, lots of vendors come to the show, walk the floor, and then end up wanting to buy a stand for the following year. So of course, it's in our interest to make sure we have lots of vendors as well as practitioners walking the floor.
Yeah, that's and it's easy for the practitioner, the buyers. So if you have customers there you want to invite, they can get into the expo at no cost. And that's huge, because they may be thinking of buying something, and you could help introduce them to that opportunity, right? And really bring them into a community that they're going to be grateful for. So don't, think about your customers and your prospects, and whether you're exhibiting with a small stand or a big one, or participating in the collaboration zone. Spread the word. Tell your customers, even if they're not in the UK, because again, they may have offices there or want to have offices there, right, and grow their company. So this gives them a chance to meet the providers of the technology that are delivering for the UK, and get their offerings in place. And I think, Rob, you already have some of the top GEO or employment of record, EOR type companies there, right, that are exhibiting?
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, we work with already on the floor plan. The show isn't until May, but you've got sort of Workday, High Bob, Culture Amp, Plum Health, like, so everyone involved in kind of persona, like operation services, but also employee engagement, health and well-being. Every aspect of, I guess, the employer's life is kind of covered by the show, I suppose.
And like globalization partners, I believe, some of the EORs that helping companies expand globally, and I'm sure you'll.
That's right. Remote as well, actually, who have taken up that.
Oh yeah.
What looks like a blank space by the Keynote Theatre, they purchased that as well. So Remote will be at the show as well as globalization partners.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice. So it's definitely the time to get involved. We're excited to be partnering with you folks, and I think just checking the live stream here as well. It's something new for us, trying to figure. The LinkedIn live stream is kind of neat, but doesn't always work, sadly. Like, I guess, like your webcam, Robbie. Hopefully it'll recover. Maybe nothing to do with the holiday party, I hope.
Yeah. Masters of technology.
No, totally. And there's also, for those interested in Europe, maybe Robbie just put in a couple cents or a couple words for your colleagues doing the show in Paris, and if there's any other events coming up that are related.
Yeah, absolutely. So in February, we are running HR Technologies France, which my colleague Vianney, based in Paris, is the exhibition director for that. So happy to introduce people to him as well. We work with a gentleman called Thomas Chardin, which some of you might know. He has over 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, and again has decided to exclusively give his support to HR Technologies in the French market. That's France, but as I mentioned, we do also run a generic HR event, which is the biggest HR event in the world, technically. So it has over 20,000 visitors, over 800 exhibitors, and takes place in Cologne later in the year, in sort of September time. Those are kind of the two other most notable events for any audience, I suppose, that's connected with Ward and with us. But we also run lots of learning events throughout Europe. And our brand DevLearn in the US, and the Learning Guild, who we partner with, OEB. We run over 40 smaller events in the HR space as well. But I mean, this is the biggest, other than Tecumseh Personal, and it's the biggest trade event in the United Kingdom, which is probably the most important point to get across.
Yeah, and the DevLearn event, the learning technologies, it's amazing how many great companies were at that event in Vegas, and we'll certainly be back next year. I mean, I think, we track a lot of different shows in HR for sure, and HR tech, and the turnover, as we call it here in the States anyway, meaning they don't come back and exhibit the next year, is pretty high. It's like 60% or something crazy. And we have suspicions why, but we don't know. And I don't know if that's a number you have, Robbie, that at least with the historical events that your folks run, like this learning aspect of the show, the renewal rate, I think, is very high compared to
the renewal rate is higher than that. So with Learning Technologies, it's 90%. We would expect the same at HR Technologies UK.
Wow.
So CloserStill Media, just so you're all aware, as an exhibitions organizer, we run technology events, we run vet events because animals always need to be fixed, and medical events because humans always need to be fixed. So turns
Right.
out that our business, luckily during the pandemic and afterwards, was not just recession proof, but kind of pandemic proof as well, in terms of us being able to maintain our relevance. We have a database of over 100,000 professionals that we market our exhibitors to over the course of the year. So I guess as an event organizer, and I mentioned just to give you an idea of how the money is spent, it's on content, it's on tech like the app that I mentioned, which we spend so much time personalizing. Then it's really about people, I suppose. You know, we make the decision, unlike any other organizer, to hire people who build relationships with visitors. So rather than just my sales team selling to vendors and selling exhibition stands, of course, what really matters is that your future customers are really inspired and engaged, and can learn about you before the event. So that's really important to us. It's kind of a loss leader for us, but obviously we feel very strongly about that. In terms of the other aspects, I suppose, of organizing an event like this one, it's also really important that we clearly identify our brands. So you'll see there's 2 visitor entrances on the floor plan on Ward's screen. All HR, talent, recruitment, people, professionals are directed into HR Technologies UK when they arrive, with lots of sort of registration staff directing them. And then in Learning Technologies UK, that's where you've got sort of learning and development professionals going in there. But everyone can access both shows. Everyone is told and kind of promoted all the content for both shows. But it just really helps, I suppose, people in terms of what their job role is, finding the best solutions and listening to the best content.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And, some of the general HR shows certainly cover all the aspects of HR. But on the technology side, the learning, let's say, technology companies don't always go to the HR tech shows. So I think this is really the best of both worlds, and bringing them together. And we're certainly excited to be running the collaboration zone to help the vendors talk about how can they improve the results for their common customers, because they may not even know who they are, but we're going to help them discover it. And later today, you'll hear from Matt at Reveal talk about how vendors can compare their client lists and see who are the common customers, so that they can prepare for success at an event like this. And some of the customers can also give you insight that, oh, we're using Cornerstone, or we're using Go One or whatever. And if they're a partner, or you're thinking about partnering with them already, this is your chance to say, wait, we have common customers, right? So some great things coming up here in the next couple sessions. So for those online now, you want to join those as well, just hang on the same Zoom channel. But Robbie, in terms of the 90% renewal rate, that's just unheard of at the shows that we've been tracking. We've been tracking about 350 shows over the past 6 years. And whenever we do the analysis, we're like, why didn't people come back? And I think it's different. It's just a different approach, and you guys really have that formula down. And
I think the main thing
we're
for us,
about.
just as a final note for me, because I know that you're sort of moving into the next session. Our philosophy is really it's just about people's jobs at the end of the day. So if I'm speaking to someone who's running a startup business, or a chief marketing officer from, I don't know, Personio, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's what makes your Monday to Friday easier, right? So if you come to our event and your aim is to generate SQLs, we just design a package that helps you do that. If it's to tell your story as a brand, and perhaps your evolved brand at our event, we help you do that, and then show off those results in your business. That's the kind of whole idea of what we do. It's making your day-to-day life and your job easier. And I think event organizers often forget that, and kind of just lump everyone in the same type of package. So that's why we have those different offerings. It's really important to us to kind of respect the people within the businesses that we're speaking to, not just those kind of company names, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And let's see, any final words of advice, for those that are contemplating, let's say if they're in the UK, it's a no-brainer. If they're in HR tech, they just need to be part of it. If they're from farther away, let's say North America, whatnot, any advice on how they could get the budget to make an not appearance, but to have a presence at this important show in such an important country? And
yeah, absolutely, and obviously sad not to have met probably more of the people in your community at SHRM when I went there, and in New Orleans, and also HR Tech in Vegas. But the ones that we did meet signed up instantly, and in fact our biggest sponsor for the event is Atlas, who we met in New Orleans. And I think companies like Atlas or Wardco, very US focused and US based, but just recognized and are now going to dominate the UK market because of their position at this event, I suppose. So last piece of advice is obviously just sign up to the show. If the UK is important to you, these are the most important days for you to travel over to the UK in the calendar year. As Ward mentioned earlier, it's timed nicely with the coronation a few days or a week afterwards. And then I suppose finally, absolute pleasure and privilege to be speaking with you. I've loved my visits to the US. I'm really passionate about the US market, and we're actually working in partnership now with HR.com, who obviously have an amazing reputation and service within the US. So we take this really seriously in terms of international partnerships. And if you want to feel safe investing in an international market, I suppose we're the partner for you. If you do want to get in touch with me, advice being sign up for the show, but actually it's really important we have a long discussion and we understand exactly what your objectives are and exactly what you're going to bring to the show before you sign up and we introduce you to our PR partner. So that's kind of it for me, I suppose, Ward, and thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, Robbie, and really pleasure partnering, and certainly great to have you here to kind of walk through all the amazing things and the differences too for those that haven't collaborated with CloserStill Media before. It sounds like, I've been to one of your shows and I know there's a big difference. So it's amazing. And even, the CEO of HR.com mentioned to me that she used to go to the learning event in London and said it's quite different and very well run. And certainly that's a big part of why they're partnering. In terms of those, again, maybe on the fence, do connect with Robbie or myself, look at, who's already there. Chances are you already have some other vendor friends or partners that you're working with that are already participating. And, you don't want to go in alone, right? You want to go with your partners, and that's an area that we can help, whether it be maybe a partner pavilion where you can collaborate directly, in a space and, basically get a larger footprint and a larger benefit package if you chip in together, and that's the wave of the future. What we see happening next year in a big way in terms of marketing is, don't try to strong arm it yourself, share the budget, share the benefits, share the leads with your partners and go to market together. And CloserStill has been very supportive of those approaches, and we can help create a partner pavilion program that can really get you places where you maybe thought you couldn't go before, and stretch that dollar or the pound or euro or whatever it is you're trying to stretch, right? And that's what keeps it exciting. And certainly, the shows like this, which most of them don't support those kind of things in the US, these guys do, and it's amazing. So grab victory by the horns or whatnot, and look forward to seeing everybody in London, hopefully in May.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ward. Goodbye, everyone, and hopefully I'll hear from you very soon. Thanks, Ward.
Yes, thanks, Robbie.
Thank you so much.